So a little bit more about Europe before I move on. First of all, I do want you to understand, I know you look at our website in particular and so on, a lot of you. I want you to understand that Europe is very different in many ways. First of all, there's this question of Islam. A number of people have said to me, well, why are you so fixated on that? They're only in Europe because other people have brought them into Europe for the reasons we all know. So really, what's the fuss? And we can make alliances with these people. Well, at one level we can. I've talked with a number of quite radical Muslims and said, look, we don't have any quarrel with you people at all. We do not want to westernise the Middle East. We don't want to democratise the Islamic world. We're happy to leave you as you are. That's your right and it's wrong for us to interfere. But equally, we do not want you, or our masters using you as an excuse, to Islamify our Europe. And I'm sure it is difficult coming from a place where basically you really haven't got any of these people and they're the enemy of another enemy, so it's easy to sort of think, well, perhaps they're okay. I tell you, you've got to imagine the Mexicans who are flooding into your country having a religion which tells them that it's good for them to beat non-Mexicans. Having a religion which tells them that it's fine to go out and pick up non-Mexican girls and use them as sex slaves. Having a religion that tells them that people who aren't Mexicans are worse than second-class citizens, are the scum of the earth. That's how you've got to imagine the Muslim population in Britain. They're Mexicans with a huge, huge chip on their shoulder. They are an appalling people. Some of them are decent, perfectly decent. But as a bloc, they are an appalling, unsufferable people to have to live with. And also their invasion in Europe brought in for various reasons, including, and it's a very powerful reason, which again I think Americans tend to lose sight of, it's a very good reason for anyone who owns a business to support mass immigration, whether it's Pakistanis into Britain, or Moroccans into France, or Mexicans into America. It's all about cheap wages, it's all about profit. It's one of the inevitable consequences of a capitalist system which says that everything is measured by money. And one of the fundamentals of nationalism is to say there are far more important things in our world than money and gold and filthy lucre. So bear with us as we play the anti-Islamic card in Europe. One, we have to. By 2015, more than half of the school children in the ancient European nation of Holland, it's the classic European nation when you think about it, because European men built it out of the sea. It's more European than anywhere else. And by 2015, more than half of the school children in Holland will be of Muslim descent. That's how bad it is. And France is following. And Britain is following. So we're going to hammer on this issue, and particularly in Britain we're going to keep on hammering it, because in a few months' time there'll be a new law in which makes it impossible to say anything about it at all. So we made a conscious decision a couple of years ago to hammer away at this issue now, while we had time, to get it fixed in the public's head. That if they've got problems with the Muslims taking over their area, then the British National Party is the party for them. So that's why we're doing with it. Just bear with us. The second thing to bear in mind, I think a lot of you have got the hang of now, is that Europe is becoming a prison state. You wouldn't believe the problems that we have and that our comrades in other parts of Europe have, with repression by the government, the courts, the police, teachers directed against kids. I'm not going to go into it because my colleague Kevin Scott, who directs our Civil Liberties Group, he's going to talk about this briefly to you tomorrow. So I won't go into it now. But as I say, you would be utterly, or certainly the people out there who believe that this is a free country and that young men from this country are going to fight and die to bring democracy to some fly-blown bit of the Middle East, they would be appalled if they knew how undemocratic the countries in Europe who are supposed to be their allies really are. And you can have no grasp of what it is to live under a semi-police state until you actually do. When even ordinary people in Britain, if they tell one of those politically incorrect racist jokes, quite literally, you see them look over their shoulder before they tell a joke. for fear of the thought police, for fear that they could go to prison for telling that joke. Millions of people live in fear of that. People, especially police officers, teachers and so on, people in professions like that, are told by their union reps or their bosses, if you vote British National Party, you will lose your job. Hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people are told that every single election. If you vote British National Party, you'll lose your job. In other words, it's not even a pretence that it's a secret ballot anymore. That's how close we are to being in a semi-Soviet state. It's very different. And the third difference is really public opinion. You've got to remember that in Britain, you've got still a significant part of the population who spent the Second World War being bombed by Nazis. In France, in Denmark, they spent a significant part of the Second World War being occupied by Nazis. Even in Germany, you've got people who have managed, subconsciously or consciously, to put all the guilt which the victors tried to put on their poor people at the door of the Nazis, so it lets them off. So even they don't want to be Nazis either. And things and perfectly sensible discourses which you can have over here, we cannot have. We simply can't have them. There are some things that we can't talk about, our laws prevent us talking about, and other things which it simply isn't politically sensible to talk about them. So we don't. So if you look on our website, don't think, well, they're incredibly soft, these people. We are playing somebody else's game. If you want to be in the game, there are certain rules you have to play. You can make sure that the good and keen people who come in, once you've got them, are educated into the realities of politics in this world, so that they're not just floppy populists who, even if they had power, wouldn't do anything with it. You can do that, but there are some things which you really just can't talk about. I think it's probably different to some extent here, but how different is it? Looked at from a European position, the movement in the broadest sense of the word in America is riddled with lunatic casual extremists who wreck your cause in the eyes of ordinary people. And also, it's dominated right throughout all the areas of it, including people in this room, with people who put up with casual extremism instead of saying, look, why are you wearing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you talking like that? Why are you producing this utterly negative music, for instance? And today, Michael Collins Piper has spoken about that. David has spoken about that, but only in passing. I want to hammer it home. If you want to be seen by ordinary, decent Americans, the people you have to have on our side as we break into the next sections of the population, then you have to look at the things which people in or who claim to be in our movement do, and you let them do by not pulling them up on it, and you have to say, well, do those things actually help? Are they actually necessary? Do they hinder us? And if they're not necessary and they hinder you, you've got to work to get rid of them, not put up with them for the sake of being polite. Because you can't rely on despair. Kevin Alfred Strom was talking about the way in which, as things get so bad, people won't tolerate it anymore. I've got a great deal of respect for Kevin and his work. Kevin, on that, I'm afraid you're wrong. People won't tolerate it, but they will run away from it. And especially in this country, there's so much damn space, they'll keep on running and running and running, well past the time when you're in a minority, and you'll lose. People don't tolerate things, they just run away from them. Or, well, they're going to wake up. Well, no. This is why Jackie gave us talk before I did, and actually it is a better talk with a big projector there, but couldn't be done. But you see this graph there. They won't wake up like we did because they're not like us. So many people in the movement, and we had this in Britain for years and years and years. You've read a leaflet. One of the speakers earlier said, it was Paul, I think, how he got this paper through the mail one day, and he read it, and it changes his life. Some of you have read a leaflet, even seen a sticker, and it's changed your life. Read a website, it's changed your life. That's because you're one of the 2.5%. The 97.5% cannot possibly change their opinion on the basis of something that they read.